We are in the podcast studio, and it has been an amazing first day. What a lineup of people from all across the ecosystem. But again, everything comes together in one place. It comes together in data. And who better to talk about it than Barak Witkowski, Chief Product Officer at AppsFlyer, but also, I would like to say, one of the architects of how we're going to bring all this data together and really move toward first-party data as a good within the industry. First of all, great to have you.
Happy to be here. Thanks
and
for inviting me.
I want to hear about how you see this through your perspective, because it is all about first-party data, but it's also about an ecosystem to understand what to do with it, how to use it. How are you seeing this happen among your customers, your partners? Share with me a little bit of those insights from your perspective.
Great first question, a very complex and important one, because really, I think first-party data is the new oil for any entity in the ecosystem, whether you're an advertiser, a publisher, a network, a measurement partner. It's all about how you leverage and maximize data for better decision making, because reality became 1,000 times, I think, more fragmented than it used to be. So the platforms are not behaving similarly anymore. Android is completely different than iOS. We see new platforms, Commerce Media Network, CTV, whatever. You need to have, the data looks now different even between different countries. If we talk about global companies, because of different regulations per different countries, now we see DMA in the EU. We are about to see more and more different app stores right now. So
Web shops.
Right. Everything is an ad network. Everything is a new sort of data silo. And if you multiply it all together, then for every entity, your data behaves differently in thousands of different flows. So how you maximize this data in each of these 1,000 or whatever different sub-entities, that's what I would say is the new differentiator, and how you overcome the privacy needs and regulations or requirements that are eventually saving each and every one of us as end users, but still able to collaborate based on your first-party data, thanks to different privacy enhancing technologies and so on.
But you bring up the point, and with web shops and everything else. So is there commonality in the data that you're seeing that maybe marketers need to focus on more, or something to guide us through that? Because otherwise it's just a fragmented cacophony of signals and data and stuff, and you're not going to arrive, because we need to get there, at some level of one source that we can maybe not embrace as a single source of truth, but we do need to start somewhere.
The first-party data is different for any company, so there is not like an ABC cookbook about that, but where we see the unification is in the methods of using your first-party data and the platform. Yeah. So whether it's leveraging data clean rooms or data collaboration platforms and similar entities to enable you to merge your first-party data with the other side's first-party data, but doing it in a very privacy-preserving manner. So this is something that we see the ecosystem more and more unifying around. And by the way, maybe it's important to mention that when we talk about maximizing your first-party data, usually when I talk about it from AppsFlyer's point of view, people take it all the time to the measurement aspects and how you leverage first-party data around measurement. But maybe it's important to mention to everyone that maximizing your first-party data goes way beyond the measurement. It's about how you leverage first-party data inside the product decisions, not only the marketing decisions, on your monetization strategies, on how ad networks are optimizing your campaigns, if you're an advertiser, on re-engaging with your existing users. So maximizing first-party data goes way beyond the measurement aspects for your marketing.
It's great that you bring that up, because of course you are in the Sustainable Growth Handbook, which is bringing together AppsFlyer and Braze and Mixpanel and Consult My Apps CMA. And that's also another way of looking at this, is understanding, like going back to your oil example, that it's about refining it and moving it through the system. It comes from attribution and acquisition, but it enables and informs all of the other areas in the company. How are you making that possible? You've done some different products and different releases, but I think it's something much more, it's much deeper than that. It's not about product releases. There's something different at AppsFlyer. Tell me about that different way of seeing and processing data.
We're usually in AppsFlyer working with the marketing persona on the brand, on the B2C side of brands. And for them, it's all the time about maximizing ROAS, return on ad spend, and taking that KPI as high as they can. In parallel, you've mentioned Braze and others, they work a lot with the product managers. And with the product managers, you all the time try to maximize the lifetime value, the LTV of the end user. But LTV and ROAS, so much dependent on each other. You cannot take your ROAS very high if you do not know to increase the LTV and vice versa. And one thing I've found really interesting in the industry is that actually the best companies that know to work together and maximize ROAS and LTV together are the small ones, because for them the marketing persona and the product persona are sitting, I don't know, in the same floor, in the same room, at least, you know what, on the same office. But when we take the big companies, many times silos marketing person is not aware of the product persona, and especially now with the loss of signals, if the product and marketing teams work better together, looking at the funnel holistically, that's based on what we see on the market, is, I would say, one of the top 2 or 3 biggest makes or breaks for brands to grow in 24 and beyond.
They have to see it holistically, but where do you see that brands and marketers maybe have their blind spots?
I would say anywhere. I mean, if I look from the marketing side, I've seen a lot of companies trying to analyze what made their ROAS drop, or understanding what they've done good yesterday that ROAS came up, and they all the time try to think which levers on the marketing campaigns they've changed, but actually it's something done on the product side, on the monetization side. Same thing, vice versa. But also AI opens so much opportunities to look at that funnel holistically. And I've seen, you know what, maybe creative is a great example for that, how companies are taking first-party data insights from the product side to the marketing side, and with Gen AI create the right creatives based on that first-party data. And then, you know, you have a real differentiator scaling your creatives. We've seen amazing such examples in last year, and I expect us to see way more as AI becomes more embedded, both on the product side and marketing side.
I mean, you have a product for that as well. Can you share something about like what marketers can achieve or aim for? I mean, it's always inspiring because it's always hard work. This is different thinking, different approach, breaking down silos, thinking about data differently. So it's work. So we want to inspire them to take on some hard work. What can they achieve? What is possible if you look at it differently, frame it differently, and construct a first-party data practice practically in your company?
If we take creative, for example, then it starts by splitting the creative asset from one layer to each of the different elements within it. So the creative is built off a script and a text and a model and a background and an image and maybe a video. So then you take that black box of creative and cut it to 20 different columns thanks to AI. Now you look at that creative throughout the entire funnel, throughout the entire lifetime value. Many marketers are looking at creative mostly on one KPI, the CTR, how much this creative is converted. But let's look at that creative with the data all the way through the lifetime value. Is the user coming from that creative really qualitative? What are they doing inside the app? And now you have 20 additional columns. And if you take, so we just in my example, I took a creative of one column, what is the creative and what is the conversion from click to install, to 40 different columns. And in the past, if you had a data of 40 different columns, good luck to you with analyzing and finding what you're looking. But luckily today you also have AI to assist you in finding the trends in the data, not to mention specifically for creative that with this data now Gen AI can generate for you the best creative. And then you're sitting here in Vegas enjoying your time, and your data and AI works for you, creating for you creatives. And it certainly sounded imaginary 2 years ago. We see it already working in reality.
What's the range of improvement that a marketer could hope for? And the reason I bring that up is because I was talking with a couple marketers and they were like thinking, everything is getting we're flipping the script on everything. And they're like, a CTR, you get very excited about, I don't know, let's just say 4%, 5%. And you're like, but you know what that really means? That means that your creative didn't work 95% of the time. If we could improve that, what would that be? And it just opens up the aperture of how you view this. And you sort of say to yourself, you know what? We can aim much higher. How much higher can they aim? What's possible here?
It's a bit hard to answer because so many factors in the formula are changing all the time. And CPIs are changing, and CPAs and how end users behave, and with privacy and loss of signals. But I would say with all of these changes, one thing remains really on place, and that's eventually everyone wants to optimize things happening down the funnel, right? Revenue, loyal users. But in almost all cases, the best way to maximize things happening down the funnel is optimizing the top of the funnel. And creative is certainly one great example.
So that is really one place to focus on.
Yeah.
In the handbook, it's all about profitable growth, sustainable growth, and seeing that, there's an interplay, and that a growth at all cost strategy, which is what was the norm before, just doesn't do it. Not right now in a privacy first landscape, but also when you're looking down funnel, and we are optimizing down funnel. What's your contribution at AppsFlyer? What do you want your contribution to be to this new thinking, this new mindset? It's not entirely new, but it has a renaissance. It is real, and the interest is real. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the handbook.
I would say three things that I feel for us in AppsFlyer, the expectations from the customers have changed in the last couple of years. The first one is how we help them with generating one reality out of all of this cacophony you've said before. So different platforms, different app stores, deterministic measurement with probabilistic media mix modeling and incrementality. iOS is different than Android. Here you have 7 days, here you don't have 7 days. I can continue forever, but how you take all of these different parameters and creating for yourself a reality of apples to apples that enable you to really take actions upon. That's something that was maybe obvious a few years ago, and it's not obvious anymore. And it's now. And it's critical, and it's probably our role in enabling advertisers to keep having that one single source of truth. So I would say this is the first thing. The second thing is assisting marketers with decision making. Measurement is just means to an end. So how do you take decisions? Again, I'm saying that word maybe a lot in the last minutes, but with AI, with other options to identify trends in your data, in the market, telling you which lever marketers like a DJ, right? They press different buttons, which buttons you need to press. And I would say our third part is taking this data, this fuel, and moving it through the pipes of your organizations, that the signals are being sent to across your stack, and all the tools that you're working with are optimized because your customer engagement platform is becoming better with these signals. Yeah. Your ad network is becoming better. The agencies that you're working with, the product division we've talked about. So how these signals are being sent in a privacy-preserving way across your stack, that your growth loop is still accelerated and growing and not having this new friction in the ecosystem that you do not feel it in your growth loop.
And now it's a sustainable growth loop. It's about, yes, you hit your objectives, you hit your targets, but there's also a different strategy in place as well. Do you see a difference in understanding this or applying this when you look across all of the app genres and types of apps? Are there some that are really far ahead and others that are still having to be fast followers, or do you see that this is overall sort of, this is where marketers struggle, but where they can benefit as well?
Always in the last decade or so, gaming companies were always the first to adopt, and very data-driven and optimizing every parameter in the formula. So we still see gaming companies the first to adopt things like SK Ad Network, the first ones looking into privacy sandbox now in Android. But I would say that more platform agnostic companies that look similarly on mobile and web and PC and CTV, they're the first ones to adopt the new platforms that are becoming more, I would say, performance-based. So CTV, television, is now becoming much more performance-based. Everything is becoming an ad network now with commerce media network. So actually on that front of new trends in the ecosystem, we see the gaming a bit behind while the other ones are in front. So like always, it depends.
And also with the non-gaming, what I think is interesting, and this is something we also bring up in the handbook, is that they get engagement. But here again, it's a mindset to take the data that we've been talking about, that you've been collecting and bringing together for me, and applying it to also achieving growth through retention. So more deep funnel goals, but also the ultimate, which is, you call it LTV, and others will just say, holding on to what we have, that's good too. That's something that's different for AppsFlyer as well.
Right. We look at it entirely. We call it internally the growth loop of our customers, and it's a loop, and that loop, you've mentioned that it needs to be sustainable. We call it the flywheel of businesses. So if you succeed to bring qualitative users and retain them within the app and optimize LTV and then take the right decisions, then it starts to accelerate inside and accelerates, and that's what's becoming sustainable. And that's why you cannot look at any KPI as a silo. And we certainly see more and more in our discussions. So let's say when we meet the performance marketer in the brand, that they start bringing the product people, the monetization people inside. If you look now at Privacy Sandbox, about to come to Android just behind the corner later this year, Google, the Android team, came with solutions that are not only for, in that growth loop, not only for the measurement of the marketing decisions, also about how you find your best users, how you retain them inside, how you monetize them with contextual ads. So if you want to maximize the new kid in the block, Privacy Sandbox, you must work together, marketing and product, and look at your first-party data as a whole. So I think it will take that industry even more 2 steps further with looking at things holistically, and we're super excited about it.
What's also exciting is, of course, everyone in the organization now is part of this, because you're talking about making decisions informed by data, but not just data stuff, data that is organized.
Right.
Yeah. And that's exciting because then everyone can input into that. You don't have to be the product guru guy or the marketing rock star. Everyone can do that. But then you need access. As a last question to you, how do you continue to enable access? People talk about the democratization of data, which is sounding really great, but there's a practical side to it. How do you approach it to make it real and make it really happen?
We've said before that each company looks at the data differently, but the platforms and the pipes are similar. And the best way looking at it is with approaches such as data clean rooms. So when you need to collaborate in your data with a different entity, there are solutions that enable one side to put that asset in a clean room, the other side is putting it in a clean room. They collaborate based on that shared set of data but in that room without getting access. And that's what not only AppsFlyer, I would say any big player on that stack of that customer. And by the way, we stopped calling it the marketing stack because it's the growth stack, right? Okay. It's marketing and product together with their different players on the stack in that clean room.
We call it the sustainable growth stack, so it's very close.
It happens with data clean rooms. And when we look at new platforms such as CTV, such as retail media networks, it's amazing how these new platforms are built from the very first day based on data clean rooms in order to leverage them. And that's our approach to that.
You're chief product officer, so there has to be a little feeling of like, yes, you know, there's part of me in this. There's part of my goals and thinking in this. How much of this is you? Not to say you want to take credit for it, but there's always a certain satisfaction when you can push the envelope or do something that pushes boundaries, or in this case, breaks down silos. What part of it is Barak?
I think it's not about Barak, and I even don't think that it's about AppsFlyer. There are two ways to have light where it's dark. One is to turn on that candle, and the other one is just to be a mirror reflecting the other candles. And I think our role in AppsFlyer is not necessarily to be the great creators of everything, but to leverage our market leadership and simply to listen. That's what I'm doing here now in MAU this week, mostly meeting our customers, hearing what are the trends that they're seeing. They're the one working on that growth loop day to day, not me, and then building the products according to that. So I would say this is what I personally try also to bring to our product organization. Our role is not to think about everything. We've talked about creative, we've talked about data clean room. I want to be honest, we didn't think about it ourselves. We just listened to our customers. We're the market leader. That's our unique differentiator that we need to leverage and build what the market needs.
So you want to mirror this back, and I have to pick up with the analogy and say, it has been a delight to shine a light on you, Barak, during this talk, and absolutely I'll be catching up with you to find out more, because the sustainable growth concept is coming together now, and it's just beginning. And
we're just 1% done here.
Yes, and there's a lot to do, so there'll be a lot more to discuss. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Peggy.